Good morning, Chem 20s. Our video today is going to be on calculating concentration. There are three ways to calculate concentration. We're going to go through these three ways in a number of different videos. Well, before we can start talking about concentration, I think we have to figure out what is concentration. So if I look at these 5 beakers, which one is more concentrated? I would assume most of us would choose the one on the right, the darker one, because it has more particles in it. Those more particles dissolved give it that darker color. Now, if we were thinking of something like blue raspberry Kool-Aid, picture this as Kool-Aid instead of something like copper 2 sulfate. Is there any other way we could tell which one is more concentrated rather than by a visual hint? I would agree. I would probably say that I could taste them, and whichever one tastes the strongest, that would be our most concentrated. Now, that is not going to be a test that we're going to use in the lab because everything we use in the lab is going to be a chemical, and so that would not fall under safety procedures. If we take a look at these 2 beakers, the difference between a dilute solution and a concentrated solution is the ratio of solute to solvent or solute to solution. So you can see in a dilute solution, we have a much lower ratio in a space here. We have much lower number of particles of substances dissolved into the solution compared to a concentrated solution where we have a significantly larger concentration or ratio of solute to solvent. Now, we're going to define concentration as the ratio of the quantity of solute to the quantity of solution or the quantity of solvent. We're going to do this using 3 different formulas. Therefore, we're going to have a big variety of units that we're going to talk about this in. Well, if I'm going to compare the 3 ways we're going to look at concentration, this would be a wonderful chart. So today we are going to look at percent by volume. We're also going to look at parts per million. And then on a future video, we're going to look at molar concentration. The differences between these are actually rather large. 4% by volume, we are looking at liquid dissolved in liquid, a liquid solute being dissolved in a liquid solution. For parts per million, we are looking at very, very minute solute quantities, very small amounts. This is the stuff we look at when possibly like health agencies. And then last but not least, molar concentration is the one we're going to look at mostly as scientists in the laboratory. We spend most of our time in molar concentration, but we're going to work our way there and we're going to start with the other 2 concentration types first. So to get started, our first type is going to be percent by volume. Percent by volume, as you can tell by the formula, is the ratio of the volume of the solute divided by the volume of the total solution. This is important. This is solute over solution. This formula has nothing to do with solvent. It's the total solution when you're done. And because this formula is percent by volume, we also have to remember when we're done to multiply it by 100%. Now, the key to this formula is whatever we measure our volumes in, as long as it's the same unit, it does not matter what the unit is. So milliliters, milliliters, liters, liters, kiloliters, kiloliters, they're all the same. By the way, if we are comparing this formula to the one in your textbook, they actually put a C here and go, define concentration equals V solute over V solution times 100%. I like to put percent volume so you remember the unit you're coming out with, because when the liters cancel or when the milliliters cancel, we only have one unit left. Okay, well, let's give this a try and get started. So if we look at example 1, a hair product requires you to combine 20 milliliters of hydrogen peroxide with enough water to produce a solution with a total volume of 120 milliliters. Determine the percent by volume concentration. So we already know we are going to find percent V over V because they would like us to find the percent by volume. When I read the question, V solute the substance I'm going to be dissolving is 20 milliliters of hydrogen peroxide into enough water to produce a solution with a total volume. So that is my V solution. And I am fine if you want to abbreviate solution as SOL apostrophe N. Again, it's over here on the left margin that we look and go milliliters, milliliters. I like that. So you get 1 mark for your memorized formula. So it's going to be V solute over V solution times 100%. So 1 mark for the formula. Your second mark is for substitution with units. So we're going to put 20.0 milliliters over 120 milliliters. And then again, times by 100. Again, your milliliters are going to cancel out. So when I go to type this in, 20 divided by 120, enter, times 100. Don't forget to multiply by 100. We have 4 sig digs, 3 sig figs. So we're going to put it into 3. This is going to be 16.7%. Again, you're going to get 3 marks for a question like this. Formula, substitution with units, answer with units in the correct number of significant digits. So, same rules we've had on all the previous math formulas. Okay, let's try another example. What I would do on this one is, why don't you copy down the example, pause the video, organize your work over here on the left, and try to answer the question the best you can, then unpause the video to check your answer with mine. So, example 2. What is the percent volume if 15 milliliters of ethanol is dissolved in 60 milliliters of water? So again, we are trying to find percent by volume. Now, this question is a little bit different. We are dissolving 15 milliliters of ethanol. So that is my volume of solute is going to be 15 milliliters. But this time, we don't have a total solution of 60 milliliters. We are putting 15 milliliters of ethanol into 60 milliliters of water. So my V solution is not 60 milliliters. It's the 15 of ethanol plus the 60 of water. So that's going to be 75 milliliters of solution. So it's very important that we read the question because the key word is it's in 60 milliliters of water. So percent by volume equals V solute over V solution times 100%. So my V solute is 15 milliliters. My solution, you've already figured out, is 75 milliliters. And then we have to remember to multiply by 100. Again, my units cancel nicely. So 15 divided by 75, enter, times 100. And again, I go back 3 sig figs, 3 sig figs. So I'm going to need 3, and my calculator only gave it to me as 2. So we're going to go 20.0%. Again, this question would be out of 1 mark, formula, 2 marks, substitution with units, and 3 marks, answer, correct sig digs with units attached. For sure, the trickiest part of this question is, again, making sure you read carefully. We're not just pulling numbers out. I really want you to read the question. Again, in this formula, because it's solute over solution, the smallest number always goes on top. You cannot have a percent greater than 100. So solute's always going to be smaller than what you're dissolving it into, the solution. Okay, last question again. I would copy it down. This one's a little bit harder. I would, again, organize the left-hand side and then see if you can do this question for yourself. So example 3, a mosquito repellent says that DEET makes up 45% of the total volume. If you have a 75 milliliter sample of this mosquito repellent, what volume of DEET is within the sample? So the question says I have a percent volume, but this time they gave it to me. So I'm not solving for this time. If you have a 75 milliliter sample, I would like to know how much DEET is in that sample. That means my solution is my actual sample. So that's going to be 75 milliliters. And I am trying to find out the volume of the solute. How much DEET is in 75 milliliters? So I'm going to write down my memorized formula. Percent by volume equals V solute over V solution times 100%. Now, I have to move this formula around for V solute. So I am solving for this. It's already on top, so I'm happy there. So when I isolate it, V solution is going to go up top. I'm going to multiply those two together. And because I'm multiplying by 100, when he comes, he's going to go to the bottom, and I'm now going to divide by 100. So V solute equals percent by volume times V solution over top of 100%. So let's sub our numbers in. 45% times 75 milliliters divided by 100%. Now, I know I moved the formula around correctly because if you look, my percents are going to cancel. The only unit I have left is milliliters, which means my answer is going to come out in milliliters. So 45.0 times 75, enter, divided by 100. Again, I go back to the question, 3 sig figs, 2 sig figs. So my answer is going to be in 2 sig digs. So I'm going to round it to 34 milliliters. Now, what you want to do is, again, this is something because it's percent, we can think through the answer. 45% is a little less than half. So in a 75 milliliter sample, little less than half of it should be DEET. So half of 75 is 37 and a half. So getting a value of 34, little less than half, 45%, the number makes sense. I really want this to be something where you're just not typing in numbers, pulling numbers from the question, and just doing it for the sake of doing the math. I want you to start thinking about the questions. We're reading for details. We're reading to see what the wording is like, but then we're looking and going, does my number make sense at the end for what I did? Especially given we had to move this formula around this time. So you're going to get 1 mark for the 2 formulas, the original and the moved around. You get a mark for substitution step with units, and you get a mark, of course, for your answer with units in the correct number of sig digs. So this question is also out of 3. There's going to be a part 2 of this video because there's not enough room to do both formulas. So please go ahead and watch the second video as well.